guys. We are so excited. Welcome to Too Legit to QT with me, Quoia and Tish, where you can get it done with Tish and be on your come up with me, Quoia.
Oh, you knew I wasn't going to say it. That's
You play too many games. So I don't have, the people on here know I don't have time for you. So I'm helping you because I'm your best friend. And today we are so excited because we have my really good, awesome friend, legendary casting director and media coach, Barbara Barna Abel. Woo woo! Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you so much, Quoia and Tish. I am, anyway, over the moon and very honored to be here. Thank you.
We are so excited to have you. And I just want to give a shout out to our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Blue Lizard Bar and Grill. If you're in the Charleston, South Carolina area, go ahead and let them know that you watch the show, and you can get a coupon off of any drink, anything.
food, anything. It's 10%. Blue Lizard 10. You can get your money off.
Yes, you got that. And desserts, if you are in the San Francisco Bay Area, now is the time. The holidays are coming up. Check them out for all of your desserts needs. So thank you to our sponsors. Whoop, whoop. And today we are here to talk opportunity readiness with Barbara.
So, love this topic.
Thank you, Barbara, for coming on. We're so excited.
Thank you. Right back at you.
So we were talking, guys, about our mugs. Everybody want to bring their mugs to the screen? Yeah. So as you know, we have our mugs, but Barbara was telling us about her mug. Barbara, can you tell us the story about your mug again?
I know, it's so true. It's Princess Beatrice's royal wedding china. So she just got married this summer, I guess. I think to her handsome Italian. His name starts with an E, and I get Eduardo. Anyway, I'm not that excited about him. It's the bee and the crown that I was just like, oh my gosh, I had to get. And I also got a little dish that goes with it, but I'm super into it.
That's so cute.
I feel like it's super posh. It's just like I'm drinking my tea, and I'm British today.
Yes, I got my pinky, and there we go.
We see you with your pinky. So those of you who know Barbara. So those of you who know Barbara know that she is just an incredible light. Literally, if you've taken a class from her, if you work with her, you just know that she is all about positivity and personal self-development. But most of all, she is about her business, and she is about hustling, and she teaches you how to hustle too. So, Barbara, we see that on your website, it says that the dream is free, but the hustle is sold separately. That's your mantra. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you started your career in entertainment?
Well, I was going to say, like a lot of people, it's sort of a non-linear story in this industry, but really, I was just a little girl with a big dream. I think ever since I was really tiny, I always wanted to be in entertainment, even though I had no idea what that meant. But there was something sort of, glamorous about Hollywood and movies and TV and all of it. And I used to love, watching talk shows when I was a kid. And, I would watch the Oscars even when I was really little and never seen any movies. Anyway, all that, just pursuing that dream. And I think it really actually started in the music business. So on the music side, so when I was in college, I had a fanzine, and I worked in college radio, and working in college radio led to meeting, I interviewed a lot of artists and would go to shows all the time, but I met label reps, and that led to getting internships, and internships led to getting jobs after college. And eventually I landed at a talent agency where I really learned about the entertainment business as a whole. Also started to learn actual skills like negotiations, contracts, how money is made, how the business really operates. And then eventually I landed at VH1, and that's where everything started to come together for me, because that was, combining music with television, media as it was just really growing and expanding, in cable, and working with talent, and all it came together. I'm interested. I was also a film studies major in college, which was the other aspect of it. So getting into the visual storytelling.
Wow.
That's the whole long-winded, non-linear, taking advantage of opportunities as they came.
Yeah, I kind of did the same thing though.
I was going to say that. I literally, when you were talking, it reminded me of Tish and her journey and her story. Tish, you can tell the people, but Tish started off, we met in grad school. We both got our MFA in acting, but Tish, you created your own content, and then you met.
Yeah, I created my own content. I was in finance before I went to school. I actually was a business analyst. So it kind of worked out that I manage money for films and hire and all this stuff, and direct, because it's always been something that I was doing. It's always been part of my brand. I'm working on that. Always been part of my brand. And when I got out of school, I was like, bump them. I'm going to do my own thing. And it was really interesting though, Barbara, because when I was getting managers at the time, they were just like, oh, we don't really know how to sell you. So I was like, well, I know how to sell me, so I'm going to sell me. And, I put myself in my own content, and then I put it in festivals, and this all-female production company picked me up, and they're like, you want to do this line producer thing? You sound like you can do that. And I'm like, sure, whatever, let's do it. And it's been like 10 years, like nearly 10 years now of doing that. And it's been fantastic. And I've met some amazing people. So
how was it being, even though you gave us the short version story, Barbara, how was it being a woman trying to do that? I know that it was probably, that being in the entertainment business is just kind of like a roller coaster, but how was it being a woman and then also accelerating in your career to where you could reach various levels, so that way you were still like continuously succeeding?
Okay, such a loaded question, but can I pause for 1 second? Because I just want to go back to what Tish said, because two things were really important to me. One, having a business background, which is my one regret that I didn't when I was younger, right? Because back in the day, creative and business, just going back a lot, were usually so separate. At MTV Networks, they were like literally in different buildings. And so I really say that because for people watching, it is really important that you understand how the business works, how money is made, how to handle your finances. One of my big things to people all the time, have a savings account for your career so you can take advantage of opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. So amazing. And the other thing you said, which I think is so great and applaud, you bet on yourself. And that's the most important thing that you can do. And you bet on yourself, and you're smart, and you're strategic, and you created opportunities. So I think really we should just do the whole episode about you. But going back to your question, Quoia, is I started a number of years ago. Yes, so some of the ways I could often just say this is someone really that I started out with, like we graduated college at the same time and started in the business together and had a mutual friend. So I started by answering other people's phones and making coffee. He started on a desk, not answering phones and making coffee, and became the global head of night division at world famous talent agency. So so that's what that was kind of like back in the day. And yeah, so many of those things that you read about from back then, yes. And and not even so heavy right out of the gate, but it's one of the reasons why I do applaud so much around Me Too and every single person who's spoken up, because yes, it all happened. I saw it, experienced it. A lot of things were really, really demeaning. Still to this day, so many friends with law degree, if you were the only woman in the room, someone would invariably say, "Sweetie, can you get us some coffee?" regardless of like what your rank was. But with all that, one of the greatest things for me was when I got into cable television, because at the time that was a huge opportunity for women, and it was great. And to make one's own way and to feel really empowered and to create and work with so many amazing and legendary women across the board. So TV's been really great for me in that way. So
wow.
And TV has also been kind of like, I always find that TV is the thing that kind of like progresses how everything else moves. I don't like. I remember when I first saw Kerry Washington on Scandal, and we had just gotten I think we had just gotten out of school or something like that. And I thought to myself, oh, this is gonna shake some stuff. Like this is gonna make a difference on how we're gonna see like African American women in leads, and it did. Like now it's just like you see them all the time. But at the time, I was just like, oh man, like this is really different, you know. And Shonda Rhimes, she was just really different. Other than like I saw Oprah, and all women saw Oprah. Like we knew who Oprah was. We were like, Oprah, billionaire woman, like she's doing her thing. Like everybody was like, oh, we want to be Oprah. But to see like when I saw Shonda Rhimes, I was like, oh, okay, this is different. This is different. We need to move on this, you know?
Right. And I think also too, like you saw one type. Oprah is one type, but Kerry Washington, she opened the door for this type of like Black person. And even Michelle Obama, like becoming the first lady, I feel like they're like, oh, there's this type of Black woman. And so it just opened people's eyes to like, oh, we can cast you in this way and that way. And so that's so amazing that you were able to hop on the shift that was happening with cable TV, Barbara. And I see that happening now, where you can see that there's this huge shift that's happening because everything's happening virtually. And there's so many people making just different types of content, that one of the things that we encourage our viewers on the show, what we encourage them to do is we say, listen, seize the day, seize the opportunity. See opportunity. Don't get scared, because right now we are in a global pandemic. So it's so easy to be scared versus to open your eyes and see the opportunity that's standing right in front of you. And so what inspired you to start your media company? Because you started you were in cable TV, and then you shifted and started your own company. So what inspired that shift?
It's funny. It's a lot about seizing the day. So there are a couple things going on. One, it just actually in the business, it was sort of a top to bottom across the board restructuring. But two things were actually going on for me in my life. One, my kids were really little. Like I had 2 toddlers at home, and I was traveling all the time, like every 4 to 6 weeks to LA. And it was the idea to spend more time but also actually more control over my life, which does for me become the definition of success and freedom, is betting on myself and creating my world my way. And the other, to your point, was just literally a carpe diem moment, that when I was leaving, an agent said to me, listen, nobody does what you do. You're the only person out there with your area of specialty. Hang your shingle and everyone will call you. And I was like, so it's part of it is listening to good advice, right? And working through the fear, because it's like, well, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I had no business plan. I didn't have a business name. This is so long ago. I don't even think I had a personal email address yet, because at that time you kind of just had your work email. But I was like, I'm doing it. And the night I left, I went out for dinner with 2 women who were both entrepreneurs, and they said, what are you going to do? And I just blurted it out. I'm like, I'm starting my own business. And I was like, I said it out loud. I'm doing it. And I did. I got to tell you, the phone rang the next day.
Wow. That's amazing.
It is a lot about leaning into like a lot of faith and trusting, but it's also based on like I had skills, I had a network, I knew what I was doing, but there's so much I didn't know what I was doing that now, I would counsel other people just in terms of like business stuff. But anyway, that is literally what inspired me to start it, to do it.
But you took a risk. You took a risk and you bet on yourself, and clearly it paid off. So.
Yes, I'm 19 years. I just had my 20 years. I can't remember. No, I just had my 19-year anniversary.
Wow.
That's so interesting though, Barbara, because I think there's this thing, right? Like we're women, where we think about our children, right? Like I need to do something so that I can make sure that I have the flexibility in my life that men don't even think about. I just want to be able to do what I want to do anyway. And one of the reasons why we started our company, but I also started my company as well, is so that we could have that flexibility, because even though we talk about like equality and we talk about like what we really want, there's also still that which is different now. And I actually, when I was working on Wall Street some years ago, they had nursing rooms, which they didn't have before. When I had started beforehand, they didn't have like nursing rooms where you could like, where they would like accommodate women. So I do see a lot of that happening, but it's something like that I think about all the time is like, I have to have this independence because I want to be able to set my own hours,
right?
You know, and I also don't want someone else telling me when they think I'm ready for something.
Right.
You know, I know when I'm ready for something, you know, so it's really interesting.
Oh, you. That was great.
Yeah. So I it's really interesting that you're saying that because I think that's really for our young women and non-binary people out there.
Mm-hmm.
Just you know, think about that because it's a real thing. Like if you really want to have a family, a life, you really need to think about what that's going to look like for you. Because artists, we don't. Let me tell you, when I started out as an artist, I had this thing in my mind, right? Oh, I'm just going to do whatever it takes to be this artist, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh, I'm going to sacrifice this and that. And then reality slowly starts to hit you and you're like, no,
right.
I'm not going to do that.
Right. When you're in your 20s, I feel like when you're in your 20s, you think that way. And then all of a sudden 30 hits and there's this imaginary clock that's on the back of your head and it starts ticking. I was calling Tish and I said, like, I got to start my life today. Like my life doesn't start when this happens, when that happens. My life starts now, like today.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting when you called me with that because I was like, girl, you just need to calm down. Like
no, I did. No, listen, it was 6 months before I turned 30. And it was almost as if, you know, like when you open a bottle and the fizz goes up, it was like the fizz was going up. And then all of a sudden I turned 30 and it went down. And I was like, oh, this is great. I'm like secure in who I am. It's all going to work out. But right before 30, I freaked out. And the thing about it is
for 2 years.
No, I did the same thing. Wait, can I interrupt? I did the exact same thing. Okay, so a million years ago, because you may not have seen this movie, there was when Harry met Sally, she has a freak out, and she's like, I'm going to turn 40. And he's like, when are you turning 40? She goes, someday. And so when I was 28, I had the exact same freak out, and I was living in LA, and I had my heart broken, and there was a job I really wanted in the movie business, but I didn't get the last minute, and I was like, I was going nowhere. It's like, oh my God. I felt, and the movie had just come out, and I was like, I'm going to turn 40 someday. And it was, and that was the catalyst. I moved to New York. Right? I leaned in. I took that really big risk. I was like, I'm like going for it. I'm going to start my life now. That's exactly right. I was not going to wait for it anymore. Go for it. And then to the same point for my 30th birthday, I was like, I remember I had a total meltdown in a hair salon because I was having a birthday party. I'm turning 30. And I was so freaking out. I just remember like, you know, weird brushes and hair and like foil coming out of my head. And just was like, I completely lost it in a hair salon. And then by that night, my partner was like, I'm 30, fine. I'm fabulous, and I've never looked back. And I got to tell you, a decade gets better. It really does.
You know, I was thinking about that today, and I thought about how much things have changed for me personally, turning 30 and specifically turning 31 in the pandemic, and how what I wish I would have known in my 20s that I now know in my 30s is that nothing is ever going to be perfect. Nothing is ever going to you're never going to get it the way that you want it, when you want it, how you want it. It's just, it's unrealistic. Yeah. And that's why I just applaud you for actually taking the chance and starting your business, because I think that's a thing a lot of people deal with. They deal with that negative internal conversation to where they can't put their foot on the gas and just start. And you said, listen, I'm going to start. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to start my business. And and I don't have everything figured out. I don't have this business degree, but I'm going to utilize what I have and things will work out. And Tish and I, we've seen that in the pandemic. We wanted to start this podcast. We were like, well, we wanted to do this thing. And you want to know what? I'm like, let's go. And I see now how things fall into place.
Mm-hmm.
How did you see things fall into place when you took that out?
Before we get to the next question, in between questions, guys, I'm going to get to questions in the comments on the side because they're coming in. We got one from Kay Montgomery. How can you tell when an opportunity is above or at your skill level? I feel like, hold on, guys. So I feel like as a woman, sometimes we underestimate ourselves, but I want to be realistic. Can we talk about the word realistic, right? Can we talk about I don't like that word sometimes. Like realistic to me is like, you got to make money, right? That's realistic. But when it comes to like your dreams or your vision, I feel like skills, opportunity above or at your skill level, I think you can always improve on your skills. But Barbara, what do you think about that question? I think that's a really good question.
It is a great question. So thank you so much, Kay, for asking. So on the one hand, it's actually a very good question because statistically, there's a lot of data about the fact that women typically, especially in business, don't apply for jobs until we are like 110% overqualified for that job. And men are like, hell yes, I can do that job. And then they lean in, right? And I talk to a lot of HR people, recruiters, and so they have a problem like underqualified, overqualified. So that's a very common thing. And so to jump in, because sometimes, but depending on what that opportunity is you're looking for and what you're applying for, is you have to look beyond the skill level and actually understand. I always say, what value do you bring, and what is it that they actually need? Because the ability to functionally do the job is often just the baseline. There are other things going on that, what are the issues in that company? Or if it's in terms of the television hosting world or a lot of things, it's like, what do they need? They need eyeballs. Do they need your contacts? A lot of times it has to do with emotional bandwidth. Like, do you have the maturity to handle this job? Do you have the resilience? Do you have, are you going to be able to handle really like the pressure or the feedback? How are your management skills? So it's actually kind of what I would look at is taking some objective criteria like executive presence and executive function and different things, and measuring those against where you feel you are and areas where you feel like you might be able to improve or mastery. On the one hand, it doesn't hurt to throw your hat in the ring, but other times it's to really understand like what does this really entail, and like what am I bringing to the party. And the other thing too, can we just be honest, is also as women, I'm going to say it, we're often judged by very different criteria.
That is true. And that is so true. And, one thing that I hate too, Barbara, is I'm not anybody's mother, I'm not your mother. Like, I'm not going to baby you, like, I think, I do feel like women, we have this nurturing quality about ourselves, but at the same time in the workplace, a lot of the times I feel like I'm like Mama because of even sometimes the relationships, just a little different. I don't know. Have you had that experience where you kind of, sometimes you just want to do what you do because you do it, but then at other times, like, you're like, I feel like I'm Mama to everybody.
Okay, it's funny you say that because my 3 core brand values or filters are bossy, nurturing, and helpful. I mean, I'm so nurturing by nature, but I'm a little bit bossy, and I love it. That's why I love what I do. And I like to help people with warmth and a sense of humor. But so that your point is well taken, right? Quoia's been in my classes. Like, for some people, I could be a little direct, right?
Yeah.
But it's not in a bad way. It's in, but you do it in a, but I'll just be transparent. When I took your class, I was kind of just hopping back into the media world after like a hiatus, and I was very nervous to take the class, but I knew I wanted to work with you. I read your book. And everybody, she has an ebook and a book. You can go to her website, abelintermediate.com. And at the time I was super busy. I couldn't catch your class. And also you have cycles where you do your class. So I couldn't take the class. I read the book, read the ebook, and I researched you, and I was like, gotta work with this lady. I have to. I even told Tish, I was like, no, I'm gonna do this because I'm an actress and trying to break into hosting. And I was like, nope, she knows what she's doing. And just even in your book, I could feel your energy. It was very nurturing. And when I took your class, it was just one of the most pleasurable experiences of my life. It was so calming, but I still felt like I got a lot of direction when you were direct, but not everybody's able to be direct and to give constructive criticism without people taking it personally. But the way that you do it is in a very nurturing way. And you're not babying, you don't baby, but it's just like, this is what it is. This is what you need to do. And so I think that that's why we all have different purposes. We all are gifted very differently. And clearly you have been gifted with the ability to be direct and bossy to get things done, but to also do it in a nurturing way, which is probably why you see results. Because, as an actress, people cannot take rejection well. They just can't. And people love to say you need to be emotionally intelligent. Yes. But at the end of the day, when you're putting your life into this thing, it's like, yo, you need to give me props for showing up. And you do. You give people props for showing up. And I think that that's really what it is. I think that you really just identify at the root level how people are progressing, so
that's a good way. That's a good way of thinking about it too. Yeah. And maybe because I deal with logistics.
Oh, like the money. Yeah.
Creatively, there's a nurturing part of people's one thing that I will say, that there's a sensitive, I remember Elizabeth Kemp, God rest her soul. She was talking about how, what's his name from Scarface? God, I don't know why I'm blinking right now.
Al Pacino,
yeah. How Al Pacino was like, I cannot judge actors because it's just such a sensitive thing. When people are giving themselves. And I think creatively, right, there is a way of nurturing people, you have to, because people are giving themselves, and you have to, when you're putting yourself in front of her, it's you. It's not like, that's an ugly cup, go remake it. You are you. You can't go remake you. So there's a nurturing part of that. But when you're in logistics, I'm just going to tell you, all you got to do is just go get that bag. Go sit down. Go to the store. Sorry.
I think you're also tapping into, I'm with you. I'm going to put that under professionalism.
Yeah, there you go.
How to be professional. And I think that that's one of the things that anybody coming up needs to hear and understand, that what it is to be professional. And yes, we're mutually respectful, but there's a hierarchy, there's appropriateness, there's showing up and doing your job. And professional has nothing to do with being corporate.
Right.
And professional is on time, appropriate, doing your job, knowing what's going on. And so that when Tish says, go get the thing over there, you go the thing over there with a smile on your face, because you're learning. You have an amazing opportunity, and there's so much to be learned every day. And we don't grumble.
I'm going to send this to some people so that they understand. I'm going to send that. When she said people.
Well, Barbara, you brought up a really good point, because we are living in the day and age where everything is very casual, and production can get very casual. You know, you're friends with people on social media, you're working long hours with individuals. Sometimes if you're, you know, filming, especially now during COVID, I think you have to live with people and quarantine together. Yes. Yep. That's a thing now.
Yes. Got it.
Yes. So what advice can you give people to still be professional, even if it seems like it's casual? Because millennials, and what's the generation underneath us? Generation
Z. I call them zillennials, but I think
okay, because millennials, we kind of got it, but I think Generation Z, like, don't send me a text message and say that you coordinated with me. Send me an email. Like, my little brother has a business and he sent somebody an email and said, oh, you know, I text you. I was like, oh, what?
Okay, don't get me started.
Yeah,
get me started on this.
Help the people. Help the people.
Okay, we have to understand boundaries. B is for boundaries.
Exactly. There you go. Okay. Not best friend, boundaries. Not best friend.
And so, but it's actually a really great point, because the world has in American culture, and especially in our industry, but in many industries, much more informal, much more casual, and understanding the difference, though, between being in a personal relationship versus a professional relationship. And a lot of these things can get blurred. I totally get it. So, but understanding it is a workplace, and also understanding where you fit into the hierarchy, so that if your boss is joking around with you, to understand that that doesn't necessarily mean you can tell a joke back, or that you could be, you know what I mean? It's just to start to, gosh, we can go into a whole other thing about emotional intelligence and how to read the room. This would be a whole other great topic, just because everybody deserves to get this memo, and I don't think anybody is actually sharing the information. So usually we have to learn this the hard way, right? But then the other is also to understand what are professional forms of communication versus personal forms of communication. So it drives me bananas that people text me text me if you're running late to an appointment. That's what the text is for. But don't text me to, like, pitch me. Until text can be filed and have the whole sort of, like, you know, Gmail system where you can put everything in folders. The text is like, what? It's, you know, like, I got 1,000,001 threads going with family and friends during COVID. I can't with the text. Same thing. Too much social media. I mean, I don't mind every now and again, you know, people reaching out with a DM, but the point is, I can't file them. They get, you know, the volume of incoming is extraordinary.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing, is just the overwhelm. So understanding that email, which I still love, I don't know why people complain about email, but they do. And I don't actually personally think Slack is that far superior, but others do. And I get it, but that's also because I'm also not part of a large team, and and I like my Google Docs and what have you. But anyway, my point is, email is still the best, most professional way. So it's to communicate. So it's like when you're younger and transitioning from high school to college into your work, understanding how the other thing is to ask questions, like, what's the preferred way to communicate here? And that you adapt to your employer. Your employer does not adapt to you.
Exactly. So I got a lot of questions in, believe it or not. So I want to get to one of these questions. I've been thinking about this for a while too, about opportunity readiness, but this one really got me. So I think I'm gonna talk about this one. What is the best way to get feedback and to determine if you're on the right track professionally, or if you need to make some changes?
That's the whole question?
Yeah, that was this is the whole.
Oh, yeah. Okay. What's supposed to get if you are on the right track?
Right.
I know, okay. Sorry, girl.
I love you for asking how to be a value. That is really a great question. It's a little bit broad, just in the sense that it's not going to be a one size fits all. So it depends on your industry. For instance, are you in sort of a traditional business job in art, in the media field? Like, wow, that's also broad. So one would be to actually identify people whose opinions you trust and are worth the. So sometimes that's a coach. Sometimes that is, approaching an executive or someone whose feedback would matter. The other thing too is, right, because it's a separate thing, but it's like I always counsel people not to crowdsource this kind of information, even as mundane as not asking people for feedback. Crowdsourcing, like, which headshot do you like best, because your friends love you and they actually don't know what the best headshot is. But with that said, so sometimes when you're seeking feedback and if you go to friends, that's important, but you don't want to get into the situation where you're getting a venting session or getting people who have different agendas trying to weigh in. So one thing is to start to, this is such a broad question, it could go into things. So one, when you're asking like if you're on the right track, is to really understand, one, what does that mean to you, right? And what is generating this question? Can you start to identify the level of, is there dissatisfaction? Do you have a sense that you should be somewhere else in your career? Is it because there are a variety of reasons, like recognition, titles, income level, where you think that you should be. And so that's going to vary from person. And then to be able to have some kind of criteria where you start to realize that is realistic, not so realistic criteria, because we can all get stuck in the shoulds. One thing that we learn, it's a hard thing to learn as a creative, and you too with running your business and me with mine, is, for instance, you cannot let money be the determiner if you're successful or not, right? Because that often comes much later. Aspects of Amazon are not profitable yet all these years later, right?
It was like 20 years, right?
Wow.
Right, $1 trillion evaluation. And so it's an extreme example, but you get what I'm saying, because because you're investing yourself in your business, you have to see yourself as a business. So that may not all, but no matter what, it's easy to compare yourself to other people or other businesses and being like, damn, like I don't have a 7-figure business right now and feel less than, or, whatever that is. So, that is also, and then it's also like the personal audit about like, honestly, what makes your heart sing? Where do you feel good? Where do you thrive? What is your value? Where can you contribute? Where do you make the most sense? And do you need to make a shift? What do you want in your life? How do you want your life to run? What are the conflicts? What are working? Meaning, so as a woman, sometimes the inherent conflict of, family versus career, and where are the places where these things can coalesce, or what choices are you willing to make and sacrifices, etc. So that's a broad question. It's hard to answer that specifically, Vanessa. So that's a great question. How can that be applied to your hosting career? So that's the same thing, is to understand. One is to actually be able to sit back and go, what's going on? Am I actually seeing the industry for where it is? Because that's come up a lot during COVID, where one is to actually spend time staying. It's part of, I think, your job to be reading the trades and staying up on trends and subscribing to newsletters and know what's going on. Because I was surprised during the pandemic how few people knew how disruptive it's been to the agency industry. People talking about, I want to get an agent. Like, well, do some Googling on what's happening in the talent agencies and how so many are struggling and furloughing the agents. And if you're not aware of that, you're completely out of sync with what's going on. These are crazy times. Who knows what's ahead of us? But I just read, it's actually one of the questions we talked about earlier, but I read this fabulous interview. I think it's Howard or Henry Lee, who's the president of TLC. They've had their best quarter ever in the history of the network this past quarter, because their ability to adapt and pivot to what was happening in COVID and translate so much of their programming into made from home programming, like 90 Day Fiancé became, a show that all the talent were self-taping and, on iPhones. I was like, that's freaking amazing.
Yes.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
And so it's understanding. Yeah. And by the way, Scripps Network under Discovery now, I can't remember if I got the order right, but Food, HGTV, one of the others, and TLC, all owned by the same, are the 4 biggest, most successful networks outside of news during COVID.
Wow. That's crazy.
Right. And so, but the point, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Barbara.
Well, I was just going to say, so part of it is to actually step step back, it's not always easy because we're emotionally attached, but it's like, what's going on? What are the opportunities? So here, the obvious was like, oh, if I can make content at home, yay, I'm ahead of the game. And that what do people want to see and need? And, you know, that's always, you're reading the tea leaves a little bit, but intuition. So what do you, how well HGTV and Food Network are doing, that's what people want as an antidote to what else is going on.
We're gonna dive a little deeper into that, Barbara. We're gonna dive a little deeper into that. Okay. So one of the things that we've been talking about on this show is creating your own opportunities, right? That's a constant theme that we have. If you guys look back on a lot of our guests, we've said that over and over and over again. And one of the things that you can do, taking advantage of what Barbara is saying, is if you have a vision, right? You can always have a tool or something. Like we have this podcast. When we started this podcast, we're using it as a conduit to help us, you know, as we navigate our careers. I have a career, she has a career. We both have individual visions, but we recognize that we could use this tool right now to help us get some things that we want. So I do think it's identifying, strategizing, and then just getting it done.
Well, also too, what you both are talking about is being intentional.
Yes.
You can go get an agent and you can do what you think you're supposed to do, but is that intentional? Is that mindful? It is not. Whenever you do anything with intention, you most likely will almost end up where you want to be. And so I think that's just something to take with you regardless of what you're doing, whether it applies to your hosting career, whether it applies to, I don't know, finding a man or whatever, you know. And I'll give you an example. Barbara, after taking your courses and whatnot, sometimes also too, I think for those of you watching, I understand. I know that sometimes you feel like you're slowing down and you just have to be busy and you have to be productive in order to get where we want to be. But sometimes, like Barbara said, which is taking a step back, looking at the landscape and understanding like how you can be intentional, you're actually speeding up because you're going to hit the mark. And I know that after taking your classes and whatnot, I really started working on rebranding myself. And we talked about that. I had this website and you were like, this just shows your YouTube show. This does not show you and all of the things that you do. Your website needs to highlight you and all of this. And so it's taken me a while to get that together, but even down to the photos, me and Tish have had conversations about, well, we don't want just all these photos where I'm smiling. The photos have to tell a story, and they have to tell a story about who I am and what I do. And so it seemed like for a long time I was slowing down, and I don't like to do that because in my mind I'm like, well, this is what I'm supposed to do because I have this master's and I've taken these classes and this is what people are telling me to do. But like you just said earlier, Barbara, a source who knows what she's talking about, which is you, the casting director, you were like, listen, lady, this is what you need to do. So I revamped it, and I'm actually getting more results this way and more opportunities. It's almost like Tish is talking about, I'm able to leverage more. And it just seems like before I was like hitting a door, and now it's just like things are just kind of all working out and a little bit falling into my lap. So it's really about being intentional. We talked about that on the
And Monica wrote in the comments, is there a Monica, this is why you are here. There is a website where you can get feedback on your hosting. That is Barbara. Barbara, you need to look at her website. You need to
put it up there, bestie.
Yes, I will put it in the comments for you because yes, Barbara, in terms of getting feedback with your hosting, is there a website where you can post it? You can talk to Barbara because Barbara has a lot of tools where you can get feedback on your hosting and where you can get feedback. Yes, go to Barbara.
Well, Barbara, you have the Facebook group, Abel Intermedia Pop Culture and Inspiration, correct?
It's my Abel Intermedia community group or whatever they call it on Facebook. Yes.
Yeah, pop group. And you, this actually brings me to my next question, because you actually posted, was it John Lennon who had bad lighting? Who was the guy that you posted that?
That's John Bon Jovi. This is how.
Sorry.
That's very funny.
Sorry,
John Bon. Yeah.
Yes, Bon Jovi. And you talked about, how he
had. I rolled the language, Tish, but it was so fun. That's funny.
Yeah, sorry. How he had
God. Okay, this.
Sorry. Well, because you're glancing on the, Facebook, you're always just kind of scrolling, and Barbara posts all this stuff. Anyway, you posted how he had bad lighting. And one of the things that I see now is that the playing field, and this is another thing, like you said, seizing opportunity, like you saw opportunity in cable TV, the playing field has been leveled, because you have all these celebrities now who are at home, who are having to do their own tech. So because the pandemic has emphasized a virtual reality for everyone, what are some tips and tricks that you can give people so they can step their virtual game up and their on-camera presence? Because the people need help, Barbara. They need a little help.
Okay, go back to what you said. It starts with attention, right? Like, how do I want to show up, right? Like, how do I want the world to see me? What do I want people to know about me and feel about me, right? How do you show up regularly, right? Is that really, that's how you go out the door? That's how you go meet? I mean, because if I'm Zooming, stuff like that, we're at meetings. This is like, how do you want, what's appropriate for where you want to be? So, I mean, it really starts with that. Then an actual resource. So for anybody who's new, one of the things I love is recommend a YouTube channel called Primal Video, Primal.
I love
Primal. I'm obsessed.
Yeah, I'm obsessed.
And they're just out of Australia, and he posts new content every Sunday. Unbelievable resources, actually just, tech content for solopreneurs and individuals. And he's so on the money, and he updates every year. So every year it's like best lighting. By the way, he hates lighting, the old, I got so many of them in my office. He's anti-light ring. So we say, thanks, Justin, that's your opinion. But, where would we all be?
Yeah.
Right, but he always has what's the best camera, what's the best mic, and he's always testing. So good, plus techniques, and shows you differences. So Primal Video is a really, really great resource. The other thing too is to actually practice and do camera tests, so that you know that each platform is different. For instance, on Zoom, you can actually go in and get new meeting and then record yourself, right, to actually see what it's going to look like, because the camera, the lens on Zoom is actually different than the lens on your computer, however it's filtered through. So the shot that you see yourself in is different than how it shows up on Zoom, which we all learned the hard way.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to start. My point is, you want to, right? So anyway. The Zoom lens is a much wider lens, and so you think that no one can see the pile of laundry or whatever that is. So you want to know what's actually. By the way, I've seen it all, and there's no reason you should ever see the inside of your bathroom, ever. No. There's no reason. I mean, there's so many no's, right? But one of my favorite true stories is when Google Hangouts were brand new. And so I still have so many issues with Google Meetup. It's the least flattering lens of all time. But when it first started, I was on a global call with comedy and live coaching. It was really, really great. And not anyone on the call told me my face was right here next to the lens.
Oh, no.
Even though I had actually done a test run and I measured, I was exactly 36 inches from the lens when I looked like this, but in the record, and I looked poured like Prince George up against the plane window.
Oh my gosh.
It was so, guys, and nobody told me. Anyway, so you want to do a camera test. You always want to know how you look in the shot, and the fact that it's optics, right? So what's in your shot? What are the colors? How do you want to show? What is the lighting? So there's the technical aspect, but then there's also the energy, what you're on camera the whole time. So when you're in a Zoom meeting, even for business, it's we can see you maybe more than when you're in a conference room. So zoning out really shows up. So be present, be generous, be energetic. And so that gets into what is the level of energy you want to bring to this? How do you want people to see you and feel you? And so for some people, this has been a great opportunity in a lot of places to be seen in ways you're not necessarily sometimes seen, and to show it. And then for others, it's obviously horrifying because there's like, I like to zone out and suddenly I cannot. And so
that's so true too, because I'm like, it's so crazy now working on Zoom, because like you're still in front of your computer and you can get distracted. I don't know if you guys get distracted on your computer while you're talking to people and you're supposed to be in meetings, when you know that if you're in person, you would be more engaged. That's been my.
People have to turn the disturb sign. If you have a Mac, turn your do not disturb on your video, your FaceTime and your messages off. I learned that the hard way when we were on the podcast and somebody called me and it interrupted.
Oh, wait, I'm terrified that that's going to happen any second now too, because for some reason mine like doesn't want to turn off anymore. My computer's a little older, and so that's totally happened. So it's like, but that's such a
notification. Even in notifications, you can't just put the little tick, the little.
No, thing just I'm not going to interrupt the podcast. Yeah, I try to do it because I learned that when I was actually recording my course like 3 or 4 years ago, and I was like, oh, great, I should turn that off, because I'd be in the middle of a thing like boom, and then it shows up, and then it ruined the take. The other thing is like you learn to take notes while you're still sitting up like this. The other thing, I mean, you have to be able to like do other things, but part of it is just coming back and understanding that we can see you. Mm-hmm. And it gets into this idea of being seen and what that means, and that can bring up a variety of issues for any of us. So I don't mean to say this and sound in any way, shape, or form judgy, but when you're asking the question about how to level up, this is really a great opportunity for a lot of people. It's even details. When I look at Tish's glasses, I think they're the greatest thing. It's like that is an access, like I see you, right? Yeah, and the choice of right, and your smile. Anyways, it's the idea is like choice of color and what am I, bringing to the event. What do I have to say? You're always asking, what am I contributing to the conversation?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know what? And I'm going to be real about my glasses, guys. So I wear glasses in life, but these, so part of my brand, and we're going to get to the brand stuff, so I see questions on that, but part of my brand is that I wear all these different glasses. It's just my brand. I mean, if you go to my website, you'll see my brand. My brand is very, very clear. And me and Quoia, we've been working on our brand for a very long time. And this is just a this year thing. We went through a brand strategist who was horrible. Anyways, I don't want to get into that.
Don't get into it.
I'm not going to get into it. But we really took the time, and we want to talk about opportunity readiness. We really took the time to evaluate ourselves this year. During the pandemic, we had all the time to evaluate ourselves, because I'm also a freelancer. So although I have my own business, although I'm making money here and there, I still work in the entertainment industry, which means you're unemployed until you get your next job. And that's just the reality, right? Mm-hmm. So what I did during the pandemic was I took the time to really figure out what my brand was, who I was, and what I wanted to say to people, and what it is that I constantly say to people, which is, let's get it, y'all. Let's get it done. Let's get it done. Let's get it done. And it just became this thing now to where it's just part of who I am, because I already do it anyway. So I do think also, when you're out there doing these things that Barbara is saying, and I'm gonna while I'm saying this, I'm gonna get to the next question. How do you know if you need to reinvent yourself, and what are some good steps to take? I really feel like it starts with you. I think your brand starts with you, who you are, what you stand for, and what you want people to see you as. Mm-hmm. And I think when we were in grad school, guys, I did this one photo shoot where I was like, I need to have long hair. I need to have an afro. I need to have short hair because I need to look like Viola Davis with this. Yep. I mean, I literally, I wish I had the photos. I would show you guys how many pictures that I took. And it's because I didn't understand who I was and what I wanted to bring to the table. And, I've learned that, the best way to be opportunity ready is to first and foremost know who you are, so the right people can find you, because not everybody's for you. Right. Not everybody's for you. Not everybody's for you. I don't care what they offer or what they're saying. Sometimes it's much more, it's a bigger headache to deal with people in one aspect than it would be for someone who really truly fits within the realm of your world. And I say your world because I believe that we create the opportunities that we want in life. We create the life that we want, and we can find people who want to who want to impact our world, who want to add to our world, and who are genuinely happy for us. Like Barbara. Barbara is a great person and resource for you guys out there. And, you know, she has a genuine heart. So I'm saying that to you guys genuinely because, you know, I don't want you to feel like you have to do something other than be you.
Yeah.
That's what I want to say. You can, I mean, hone in on your skills. That's just point blank that you have to do that anyway. Keep learning, whatever. But I want you guys out there to be who you are, level up in your own way, and find ways to create opportunities for yourself. Sorry, Barbara, I kind of took over, but you can go ahead.
Are you kidding? I love everything that you just said. I could not agree with you more. And so absolutely to what you said, it's like, know where you can offer value and where you are going to be valued.
Yeah.
And for some, that's like a first brave step to realize you don't want to fit in everywhere. I mean, it doesn't make sense anymore in the world that we live in. It's not one size fits all, but really start to identify where that is. And so part of it is like, where do you feel good? Where are you going to thrive? Where, you know, where are your values? Where are you in alignment in terms of values? In some ways, just a sidebar, I often say to people, you know, when you start to make a list of like, oh my God, I'd love to work there, or who I'd like to work with, is, you know, make your jumbo list, which I love lists. But then the other thing is start going on and looking actually at mission statements. Like go down to the deep part of a website and like, what are the causes people believe in? Where do they spend their money? What are they supporting? And sometimes you'll be really surprised. Like, oh, I thought that company because I like their visuals or whatever it is, or I like their thing. That's where I want to be. And then you realize, oh, we're not in alignment. And then you find other places like, wow, this is so about who I am. So that's part of on all of us, like do your research, and part of it is understanding who you are. Going back to Vanessa's question, I'm going to say one of the things too is I'm always tweaking. It's not the idea in terms of updating the brand. So it's not like I'm necessarily changing who I am, but we live at the rate of acceleration right now, head spinning, mind blowing, right? So it's like part of it is to always sort of like stay fresh and relevant, right? Right, as you start to understand who you know, really understand who you are, what you stand for, what your skills are, where your values lie, where you bring value, that's great. But we're always kind of having to refresh and update the visuals. Website, just to give an example, God, did I go live in like 2003? Anyway, it lasted for 10 years. My second website, 5 years. And now I update my website every year. Right, just to give an example, and constant like tweaking my LinkedIn, and sometimes it's just exhausting, you know, to price point is like stepping back and just like, okay, the world's going to move on even if it's a little off filter. But and the other thing too is sometimes visually to realize, you know, finding where you can, it's like you don't want to get stuck in the middle because it feels sort of safe and familiar, but then you're just lumped in with everyone else. It's just kind of skirting the edges. It's like hitting the side of the road. But it's also trying to give yourself permission, avoiding the tendency to think, oh my God, I have to be like way out there and so wildly original. And if I'm not, then I don't matter, because I really believe in abundance theory and the sort of blue ocean theory that there's room for everyone. You just have to like find your place. And again, these are really sort of broad concepts, but it is to look around and understand. Even into websites, what are the current visual trends? And you know, a lot of white space has been the trend for a long time. So if your website's all black right now, you might want to freshen that up, or you know, like scrolling, like how to use the interface and all those sorts of more technical questions. But understanding, because I'm always tweaking, is like, how can I tell my story better? And go back to your thing that you just second. I mean, especially when it comes to my media coaching, I sometimes say to people, like, if you can work with someone else, I might not be the person for you, because a lot of people I work with probably can only work with me. Like, I work with a lot of outliers and really original and creative, and we just get each other, right? And that's good. And so that's a big part for any of us, to kind of, when you've really taken a giant leap forward, when you can be like, this is who I am, and that's okay, and I may not be the right fit for you, and that's hugely liberating. And to Quoia, which then stuff starts to happen, because now you're really focused on where you need to be and how you need to tell your story better, so that people can hear you and find you.
But You know what's also interesting? Oh, sorry, Bessie. You know what's also interesting? Just so that we can get you guys some resources and some tools. I want you guys, if you're out there, you're talking about branding, and these are really good examples. There's a woman named Tabitha Brown. She has, you might have seen her on Facebook. She's a vegan. She became vegan because she got sick a couple years ago, and she got this huge following. And that's her lifestyle. It's something that she loves. She loves to cook. And all of a sudden, she started to get her own show. She's aligned with all of these food channels. And part of her values, and I'm going to talk about core values, is her family and what she puts in their body. And all these brands and all these companies and all these hosting companies, they started to hire her because they recognized part of her values as part of theirs as well. Mm-hmm. And another person me and Dr. Quoia always talk about all the time is Danny Washington. Mm-hmm. Danny Washington, you guys can look her up on Fox. He's a host on Fox, but she's like a surfer. She's like a surfer girl. And mm-hmm. everything she does is around water and around like earth mm-hmm. and around because that's what she values. She values like nature. She values surfing. So when you go to her website, you get who she is. So I think I have some exercises, guys, that'll be out on my website pretty soon in my ebook. Just throwing that out there. Yes, where you identify first and foremost what you value. You need to know what you value, right? So you know the right people that you're targeting. Because I think I know what I do, right? I see something pretty. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this looks really pretty for them. And it might not be for me. And I do this when I look at logos, right? Mm-hmm. It might not be for me. It just looks really pretty for that person, but it doesn't represent me.
Well, can we just, so both of you bring up a very interesting point, but I think that sometimes creatives, we underestimate the value and the importance of doing your personal work.
Yeah.
You can't even get to all that if you do not know who you are. And I am an advocate of doing the internal work that you need to do in order to find out who you are, why you are here on this earth, and your purpose and your mission that you need to do. And that is not tied to your job. Your job and how you do it, that's how you carry it out. But the core of who you are, the core of your being is rooted in that. And I think that what you were talking about, Barbara, which is, a lot of times some people they operate from a place of fear of like, oh, I may not get this opportunity, or oh, I have to be this big personality and this big thing. Or even you, Tish, where you're talking about, understanding your core values, you don't have to operate. You won't operate from a place of fear if you've done your internal work and you know who you are, because you can just sit confidently at the seat of consciousness, read the Untethered Soul, y'all, and you can confidently say yes to things, say no to things, say I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna choose this girly look, Tish, or I'm not gonna choose this girly look, because you know who you are and you've done that work. You know what I mean? Like, being in the entertainment industry is filled with so much anxiety. I don't care, nobody likes to talk about it, but it's just, you're on the entrepreneur roller coaster. So that's a whole mental health bag within itself. And then, especially if you're a performer of any type of shape or form, then you got the anxiety that goes with that. And you actually have a mantra for that, Barbara. So I encourage people, get in therapy. If you can't get in therapy, just start looking at your history, look at patterns, in your life. Sometimes you won't even realize that the reason why you do this in your job, or the reason why you are a people pleaser, is really rooted and grounded in this and X, Y, and Z. So the only way you can go forward in your business and understand your brand is to understand who you are. So I just wanted to put that disclaimer out there, Barbara. And you talk about that a lot in your classes, mm-hmm. which is like identifying who you are, owning your seat. How can you own a seat if you don't know who you are? You just on the floor. You're not. You know what I mean,
so much. Now do you see why I print Turquoise photos and I look at them before I make videos? I love her so much. I love you. Wait, and you know what? And just like for a lot of hosts, a very obvious connection to that is when people say, I want to show my personality more. Or like, the script was, and I'm like, well, what's your personality?
Yes.
Exactly. That, and I'm gonna say this as a producer, I'm always in auditions and all the time. And you get a good idea and a good sense of people who just know who they are. They know who their instrument is. They know their capabilities. They know how far they can go, how far they can't go. And I've said this a couple of times when I've been in auditions. I'd rather somebody give me what they know they can do than try to do something that they like. I'm not saying don't take risks. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying is if you know what you're capable of doing, you'll do your best. That's what I'm saying. Let me just say that. If you know what you're capable of doing, you'll do your best. And it'll work to your advantage because you can then use it in multiple ways. So it's really interesting that you're saying that as well, because I do feel like that's part of being the artist. It's a job too. And I think that part of your job is to know who you are. And it's honestly an advantage because being aware of who you are, a lot of people who are outside of this, they don't work on themselves like that, unless they're on somebody's bag, right? Like I'm going to be on Gary V's.
Oh, not Gary. Barbara, because some people are losing it. Let's get back to the pandemic. Some people are losing it. They're like in isolation. They're like, I don't know who I am, why I'm here. What advice can you give them to really just take this time to find out who they are, and to stay motivated? Because I think people need some motivation as well.
That's actually great. I love that you know what? Look who I have. The other person that keeps me company every day, Yoda. That was like such a question. Like, I love that you think I'm the oracle, Quoia. Thank you so much.
You are.
But I was because I actually want to go back to one second what Tisha said, because the reframe I might say or another way of saying that is to play your strengths. So you need to understand what your strengths are. Right. And I often ask people through the coaching, like, what are your superpowers? And often those are things you do so well that you don't even really understand that that's exceptional about you, and start to own your exceptionalism. And that's sometimes you say, it's like, and play to your strengths, because that is where you start to stand out. Don't play to who you are not, which is, I think, what you were saying, Tish, is like, it's like, don't go and try to be someone you're not in that room or in that moment. Right. Somebody's having the courage to say that, but yes. So go, okay, Turquoise, that's such a big question. So wow. One of the things, I mean, on a real level, like I actually got in the habit now, because it has been really hard to be motivated, right? In the beginning, it was just so overwhelming. We always take claim as New Yorkers. I'm in Brooklyn. We were right? Well, hi, we were the global hotspot for a number of weeks. It was
so stressed out.
It was so bleak. Can we have a moment for us? Like, we survived. It was
no, we need a whole hand clap. Brooklyn in the house. Hand clap. Okay.
Right? And so, wow, I started 2020 with I published those goals, and I was like, anyway, we had to set those aside because 2020 had some other ideas. So to your point, is one of the things is really start with, what can I do today? I actually write every day in my book, what's the most important thing I can do today to move forward? And to everything we talk about, some days it's like, I'm going to focus on my healing today. Other days it's like, I'm going to work on this project, or I need, getting back to so-and-so, or generating. It's not the same thing every day. Literally, like, it's the actual question. What is the one most important thing I could do today? Another way is to ask yourself, what's my priority today? What are my priorities? What do I intend? Don't overwhelm. Don't look too far out. I mean, I think we're on the same page. I'm a big believer in prayer and meditation. So, and to actually stop and be still, it's a really giant reset. So it's kind of, the other thing I loved is, I think it was a quote from Huffington Post at the beginning of the year. It's life is a delicate balance between making it happen and letting it happen. And so it's finding energy and the wisdom around that, which is not always easy, but that's a big thing that I think this year forced a lot of us, if you're in the doer category, to have to sit back and realize I cannot always be doing. And maybe sometimes my act of doing, and I actually was about this in my newsletter in July, that I realized that taking a step back was actually a choice, right? That I wasn't giving up. I needed to step back. The overwhelm finally hit me. And I said, I checked out to check in with myself. And it was a really, really important reset. So and by the way, I use this as an exercise all the time. So a book I highly recommend for everyone is called Taming Your Gremlin by Rick Carson. He's sort of the OG of the getting out of your own way space. I mean, he was writing in the 80s, I think. But a really simple thing is just get in the habit of checking in with yourself. Stop, acknowledge, and reframe. How am I doing? How am I feeling right now? And we check in without judgment, right? We have a range of feelings during the day. There's no judgment around the human experience, but just ask, is how I'm feeling serving me? And
yeah, that's really good. That's really good.
You speaking to her soul, Barbara.
Yeah, no, like, I mean, and I'm saying personally for me, because this is helping me, because as Darkoya knows, I have a very stressful job, and rarely do I really truly check in with myself to see how it is and what it is, whether or not it is something that is serving me, or whether or not it's something that I may need to. Because what I will say is that you're going to get stressed from any job or anything that you do, but the one question I really never ask myself, does it serve me? Does it serve me to do this right now at this time in my life? And the reason why what you said just now resonated with me is because sometimes when you're hustling, right, you'll be hustling and you'll be doing the same thing that you've been doing for years, right? But you're at a different place in your life. So you got to take the time to stop, check in with yourself, and determine what you've been doing for the last 10 years. The way you've been doing it, is it serving you now? Do you need to reevaluate and do something different? And in that time that you've been hustling, have you gained some new skills that can help you do something different? And I had to actually do that on my technical thing, because I've been learning new technical skills, and I'm like, oh, I'm really good at this technical stuff, so I think I'm gonna try some things. And that was me learning that, okay, the stuff that I've been doing in this area hasn't been working. I need to try this. And actually, I learned a couple new skills that I'm using, and I am monetizing off right now because I evaluated some things about myself and what I was good at and what I learned. And I'm like, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. So that goes a little bit into what Vanessa has been asking some bomb questions tonight. Vanessa,
wow.
The best tools to determine your purpose and why, and to take actionable steps towards realizing your goals. I do want to say that there's Barbara, was that too fast?
Oh, no, go ahead. Go right ahead.
I do want to say that I do think there's a difference between goals and purpose, right? I do want to distinguish that, because goals, you can have like small goals, large goals, or whatever, but that doesn't really define what your purpose is. Your purpose is always something that is associated with who you are and what you can contribute to the world, right? What you can contribute to the world, what you can contribute to life. And I always believe, it is my personal belief, it always has to do something with helping people. So your overall purpose has to contribute some way, somehow, to this planet that we're living in. However you define that should be, right? So whatever that purpose is, what you're doing in your career should contribute to that some way or somehow. You have to figure out how that's going to give back. And like, for instance, Darkoya is very good at motivating people. She's been doing it for God knows how long. It's just a natural thing about her. And And, you know, one of the things that we did is we created a motivational album for kids, but it fit along the lines because Darquea also is a teacher for kids. She motivates kids. She has them saying all kinds of mantras, guys. You should see these little, they are so cute. Barbara, they are so cute, the little kids with the mantras and stuff like that. So
God bless you. Think about the world we would live in. We got to blow this up. Because imagine how different the world would be if every child understood that they could check in with themselves, because the feelings they were having are healthy and it's okay. And if it's not serving you, you know, here's an alternative. And to say your affirmations and to live with mindfulness and intention and to use your kids learn how to identify what their emotions are.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, Michelle Obama made a comment and said that the most useless thing that you can ask a child is, what do you want to be when you grow up? As if growth, as if there was like a destination, as if we're not ever evolving beings. And just for Vanessa, and then Barbara, I want you to give us all of your knowledge. But I'm so happy that you asked that question, Vanessa, because I think that as a woman who is, I'm 31. I don't care if anybody knows that I'm 31. It's very interesting how sometimes it's like, well, you're defined as this or that, and you have to be like this one thing. And you brought up earlier, Barbara, about we're ever evolving beings. You're not, just because your brand is done one time doesn't mean that you can't continuously rebrand yourself. And even getting to know yourself, like the way I was at 25 is not the way that I'll be at 35, is not the way that I'll be at 45. So why is it that we always think that we're going to be at like one destination? That's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous to ask a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? Whatever they want to be, however they want to be it.
However they want to be it.
If they want to be a nurse and then switch up and be an entertainer, that's their prerogative. Barbara, if you want to say, you know what, Able Intermediate, I'm over here and I'm gonna, you know, become a stylist, or I don't know, NASA chemist or something like that, then whatever. That's what you want to do. And you
100%. Yes.
And people are
God knows, you know what, you're going to me for style advice, but other than that, that's funny.
Oh,
I love that. I totally do. I'm just not making, but well, you're also getting into the fact that is where our lives are now. That we have many. Most of us, I think, average now is most people will have 3 careers at least.
Mm-hmm. Multi-hyphenate. That's the term now.
Yeah,
it's like multi-hyphenate. Everybody's a multi-hyphenate.
Right. Well, for a variety of reasons. One, because just realistically, like, you know, living longer and working longer. And I honestly don't expect to ever retire, because I find so much to talk about purpose. I find so much purpose and meaning in the work that I do. And it makes such a difference. Like, I wake up excited about my work every day. Right. And like, we're living in crazy times and different anxiety, but it's like, I love what I do. So I feel very grateful for that. And so that is one of the things about in purpose, it's really like, what do you love? And on the one, so here's one, it's kind of a funny example, but going back to when I started working at VH1, I was on a panel at college talking about this, and everybody had these really like serious jobs and PhDs, and I was making TV. But I was like, listen, I found a job where they pay me to watch TV, listen to music, read magazines, and talk on the phone. And that's what I would do all the time, no matter what. So it's a version of finding what you love and like, where can you do that? And it's sort of, but so it's the same thing. What do you, honestly, like, I'm chatty. I like telling people what to do. I love reading personal empowerment literature. I just meant like, it's like almost the place to my strengths. And so that's one of the things in finding purpose. It's like, to me, I actually, one of the tags on my literature is I help people of impact make their impact. And a person of impact is anyone who chooses to be, right? Wow. Teach other people of impact, all the different people I work with.
Barbara, come on, Barbara. You teach
right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's a choice. That's a leadership mindset. You're a shepherd or a lamb. But so I think everybody's a role model and has the capability. But so so to Tish, what you're saying, what you're saying to Quoia, if you are conscious and mindful that you want to make a difference in the world, you're a person of impact. And my job is to help you do that. I'm just like a piece of the puzzle.
There you go, guys.
Well, I know people want, and you've dropped so many gems, Barbara, but how can people create their own opportunity in this virtual landscape right here, right now? Because I know everybody has 50 million questions, but maybe we can because we are approaching a little bit near the end. What advice would you give people to create their own opportunity? What are some things that they can do to create their own opportunity right here, right now?
It's everything everyone said. One is just get started, right? And so it's identifying, what can you talk about a lot? What are you so interested in? You can talk about that forever. Sometimes I ask people what would be your categories on Jeopardy? I mean, the ones that you're good at. But there's the other thing, two things we really want to talk about. So one is finding what you're interested in, the other, and just kind of getting into it. So not getting too bogged down in the beginning. But the other thing too is we have to be honest. Execution matters. There's not just doing, but there's doing well. And so that's where we get into skills, staying with it, mastery, leveling up, right? And so if you just want to so one is just start practicing. If you want to be on camera and someone asks a really fair question about how do I get in, I don't have a reel, you can actually create your content, but it's not the first thing that you ever shoot, right? So then you become thoughtful and intentional. It's what do I need to do? How do I connect with the camera? What do I have to say? I need to practice. I need to get good at this, which is part of it by being impactful or effective and understanding how you define success. What's the result you're looking for? Who are you trying to reach? Who are you trying to talk to? Do you talk to them? Are you connecting with them? Are you meeting your listener, your viewer where they are? So some ways to get started. I mean, so you guys just got started by creating this, right? Start a blog. Another way, quite honestly, too, is a simple step is to start showing up even on social media. Even if you're not posting content, participate in conversations. Look at all the people who are really awesome and stepped up, like Kay, Vanessa, and some other people. They participated in this conversation today. You're now connecting and developing. Really, this is a relation, especially media. It's a relationship-driven business. Relationships matter so much. So there's so many ways to create relationships. Even if you think that you're an outsider, I can't tell you how many people I've cast and made friends with who, because they're active with me on Twitter, or active and generous in my Facebook group. And that's not about being transactional and just out there to promote yourself. It's about showing up in the conversation and interacting with the people. It makes me so happy when I see other people have become friends with each other based on these conversations. And so that's one way, that is a way to get known, right? And ask for advice, but show up, participate.
I concur. I concur with that.
I've met so many people in your class. Literally, and they're all doing amazing things. I mean, Dr. Dave, Jennifer,
Dr. Dave,
the fashion doctor. I mean,
welcome back.
Yes, so many people, but I think you're definitely right. Even with this podcast, I mean, even being an actress, now I have casting directors, I'm talking to them. And it's so interesting. I was telling Tish, I was like, wait, what type of world? I remember when we couldn't get a casting director. We couldn't even talk to a casting director without having to pay them. And now we have them inboxing us about the show, or just people in the industry about the show. It's the most mind-blowing thing, but like you said, we're participating in some way. I didn't even think about it in that way, participating on social media or participating virtually in some way, shape, or form, so people can know you, because it is, like you said, it is a type of relationship, even though it's online. I never even thought about it like that. That's amazing.
And we also, when we started the show, it was, and this is another thing, guys, when we're talking about tools or whatever, and talking about you using things to help you further your career, one of the things that really helped us on the show was we already had connections with people. I had connections with people. She had connections with people. And we sat down and we thought, what would be the simplest The easiest way to have a conversation with people in a way that's meaningful and in a way to where they would be willing to participate. And
you're not asking them for something, because sometimes you feel a little bit salesy, like, can you
Yeah, but the thing about it is that everybody, that thing when we talked about purpose, Vanessa, when we talked about purpose, everybody has a purpose, and a lot of people are living that purpose, and their purpose always comes to the core of wanting to help people, right? Because that's where a lot of people come from. I'll say a lot of people that I know that's in my circle, because when we talk about like purpose and having people in your tribe, you know, the people in my tribe, we all have that similarity. We love helping people, right? So when Darkoya and I started this, I already knew that my tribe, the people around me, they were going to want to participate because we had that common goal. And, you know, part of my core values is I love to help people, and I let people know, like, I love to help people. I'm a business person. This is where I come from. You know, these are the companies that I participate with. And then these are like, we're coming together because we all participate in that same group, you know? So it was also a lot easier, I would say, for me to create a podcast where I knew that people would want to help people out here during the pandemic, come up with ways to create their own opportunities, because that's not a lot to ask for. It's not a lot to ask for, just to give somebody tangible advice. This is all tangible advice and resources so that you guys out there can create your own opportunities and eventually be Barbara.
But Tish, you know, I want to say that just to clarify first, because sometimes that can get a little overwhelming too, is that I feel like entertaining people is a noble pursuit. Maybe life is hard. So if you can change someone's energy, make them smile, make their life a little bit easier so I just want to offer, because I want people to know that, like, that is a way of helping and offering value and making a purpose, if that's part of who you are. For some people, that might be, you know what, I'm really good at synthesizing complicated information and making that accessible. So now that's a tremendous value and purpose that you're offering like great value to someone. I have a client in news who's found so much value during the pandemic because realizing how important it is to be sharing accurate information in a way that people could hear, and really stepping in. It's like, what, and said, because I was like, you're crushing. She's like, I feel so connected to purpose right now. And I understand why what I'm doing is so important. So I just want to say that too, because sometimes we can feel like, because I'm with you, like, helpful is, in fact, I use it, it's one of my own filters. Like, I will ask myself sometimes, is this helpful, or is this just like amusing to me? Because if it's simply amusing to me, I have to, no, it really fit, right? You know, it's like, but it's like, will this actually provide value to anyone who would read it, is one of my own filters.
Right.
But on the other hand, I just want to lift the pressure of someone who might feel like, am I offering making the world a better place? and so you just sort of hide going, and it's like, it's understanding, it's like, so even on the one-to-one, if you're making one person's day, if you inspired one person, if you shifted one person's energy, that's really wonderful. And that's connected to purpose. So understanding, you know, how we communicate and we show up generously. And to that point too, sometimes if you're on this path and trying to figure that out, sometimes it will be revealed if you are kind of doing it with an open heart, right? It's like, and so allow for that kind of to come towards you. But I only want to say that too, if anyone was feeling like, gee whiz, I don't know. Like, I don't split atoms and I'm not inventing anything. And then you're like, I got nothing to offer. And it's like, not true.
Yes. And and we interviewed a wonderful, our friend, wonderful actress, writer and producer, Yamoria Wright. And she also said when she created her web series, she thought nobody was paying attention, but people were paying attention. And just to what you said, Barbara, you know, whatever you do, even if it's an Instagram story or you're posting on Twitter, somebody is seeing you. So you're helping somebody. And I've even received messages sometimes where it's like, oh, like, what happened to your funny stories that you used to post? It just used to bring me so much life. And I was sitting there like, what? Even though I was like, oh, maybe it was only 25 or 50 people, but maybe that helped to brighten that person's day. So like you said, Barbara, people are watching you, and you can make an impact, and even in a small way. And it may seem small to you, but so many people are going through so much pandemic. It's a ripple effect. And even think about even just the art of storytelling. How did we all make it through this pandemic? Netflix. Like, let's just call it like a TI is, as my mother would say. Like, we made it through by escapism. Come on, bestie. We made it through. I watched all of Game of Thrones. That's all that I focused on when everybody was just dying.
Where's your Game of Thrones doll?
Where's your Game of Thrones? Brienne of Tarth, but I was like, that was heavy and dark during the pandemic.
I loved it.
I turned to Shit's Creek. That's all I could handle.
Oh no, because
Brienne of Tarth, though, my favorite.
Yes, I love Brienne of Tarth. Well, for me, it was like, listen, this is this reality that's so far removed from what I'm dealing with, and all storytelling is escapism, you know. And we really are helping people in entertainment. I know sometimes it doesn't seem that way. Sometimes it may seem like it's trivial, but at the end of the day, you're bringing people happiness and life and light. That's it, you know. So we're making an impact. Yeah,
yes, you are.
That's what we're trying to. I'll say that we're trying.
But we are coming to a close, Barbara, and this was just so amazing. I already told Tish, I was like, listen, Barbara's episode's about to be lit because Barbara's just lit and light within herself. So get ready. I was like, she's just so down to earth. Even though you're like a bona fide boss and everybody knows it, but you just come in the room like, hey, hi, I'm Barbara, the boss of everything, though. Look.
Wow.
So thank you so much for coming on the show. But we have a question to ask you. So what is your mantra or like your life anthem? It could be, it's just something, whatever keeps you motivated. It could be like a song. It could be a mantra, just something you say to yourself that you have kind of used repeatedly throughout your life just to stay motivated, like your life anthem.
Oh my God. Okay. Contrarian Aquarian that I am, like I have more than one, and it can depend on the day, right? So my daily, well, really, you know, it's like, but so my daily, honestly, would be wake, pray, slay. I mean, it's just like how I approach every day. Very simply, it's like, this is the structure. And then honestly, and it's on my website or somewhere, is I think, because it was a big thing, it took me a long time to figure this out, was that you don't have to be perfect to be amazing. And so, because nobody's showing up for my perfect. People show up for the value that I bring, right? And so,
wait, say that again, Barbara. Repeat that. Like, we need to rewind it back, Barbara. Say it again. Say it again.
Well, no one's showing up perfect. People show up for like the value and like, what do I offer? No one perfect is inward facing. It's actually shame driven, but according to Brene Brown, who I worship. But so it's like when you're outward facing and thinking about open hearted and what you bring, it's like you don't have to be perfect to be amazing. So that's why you don't need the perfect to actually start making an impact, to make the sale, to get the job, to create the opportunity. So it's about actually defining what success is, and success is to you, and what's a happy outcome, or all the number of different ways that we want to look at it. But nobody, and it brings up all the time in hosting, it's like I don't even know what the definition of like perfect host read would be, or perfect teleprompter reading, or a perfect interpretation of that thing. It's because there was some kind of emotional connection and it meant something to someone, and there was an exchange of energy, and that's where it's a reframe. So no one shows up for my perfect.
Wow.
Well, okay, she took me to church.
So yes, she did. But Barbara, I want to make sure that people can follow you on Instagram and on Facebook. Your Instagram handle is Barbara, BARBARA _B _Abel, on Instagram. And what is your Facebook handle? I don't have that on my list.
It's Barbara Barna Abel. This is how long I've been on all these platforms, and of course, anyway, there's no consistency. And then my name stopped being available, and Twitter won't let you change it, and all these kinds of different things.
Twitter is
so. I know, and I've been there. Anyway, Twitter, it's at Barbara Barna, my maiden name. Facebook is Barbara Barna Abel, my married and professional name. And then Instagram, because I screwed up somewhere and had to redo it, then it became Barbara B. Abel, which I love because it's my most empowered name.
Yeah, I like it. I do. Barbara, like Gary V, Barbara B.
Barbara B. Hey!
All right, guys, we are so happy that you all joined us.
So awesome. Okay, Tish, you're a new member of the family. I love you. I feel like I've known you forever. Quoia, I love you. So thank you so much. I feel really, really honored to be here.
Yeah, and Barbara, stay on for like 5 minutes while we are ending right now. But we are so excited, guys, that you guys came out to us. Join us next week, Thursday. We'll have a new guest come on to talk about being opportunity ready. And we'll give you some tangible tools and resources to help you level up, create opportunities, be opportunity ready, which is our theme for this season. And we thank you all again for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming, Barbara. This has been truly amazing. We appreciate you. And we appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you so much for all of your love and support. And it's going to be all right, y'all, in this election. Don't worry. Listen, I know you took a break to watch us. Thank you, but it's going to be all right. Either way, we're going to be okay.
Yeah. I did, girl. You just spoke to me just now because anyways, we'll see y'all next Thursday. Thank you, guys.